Um, it is Friday. We're getting on to after. It's been a wonderful week, and Tanya and I were talking about the tools that we use as we're helping some kids. So Ian and I and a few others, Parker, are helping some kids at Northwestern University write some code. So Tanya, I think maybe it's the first time you've been on the What Tools I'm Using This Week. Welcome. Um, what do you do, and how are you using AI in your work or play? What's happening with you?
So I work in project management for General Motors right now. I do use AI on a daily basis in my personal and professional life. And I think it's a standard that people are probably used to, like ChatGPT, for example. I just recently created a Pokemon battle deck. I booked my travel over it. And then there are some other tools. I'm currently working on a AI and project management certification. So some more project management specific tools. One of my go-tos is called Goblin Tools, which creates a work breakdown structure. And I like my personal life, I just used that because I created a train set and I was stuck how to start. So I just typed in create a train set and it created all the tasks for me.
That's awesome. And I don't know about you, Tanya, but I find sometimes when I get up in the morning, I have my first of 10 cups of coffee. I'm trying to think about like how it can be most helpful in the day to my friends and colleagues as we do cool stuff in generative AI. And it's almost like my coach, kind of like I share ideas with it and that sort of thing. I'm learning a bunch this week about comparing tools. Okay, so what we have is we have some students at Northwestern that are building a pizza app. Ian and I were out to a pizza restaurant, and I work with Ian and GM. We co-lead the AI center there, and we both love pizza. We're kind of pizza nerds. Like we talk about flour and temperature and how long the dough should rise. But Professor Warren, who's a colleague and friend of mine forever at Northwestern, said, don't have the kids use a bunch of AI tools. So I'm like, oh, okay. But we're going to do that today and show some tools that we're not using this in our professional life with any corporate data or anything. We're just playing around. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And let's see, I'm gonna see if I can share my everything here. Oops. I always find this sharing not my favorite experience here. So can you see my screen now?
Well, yes, I can see myself. So yes, I can.
Okay, good. So and what I'm going to start with is this notion of what the problem is that I want to solve. So when I'm doing research on something, I start with Perplexity AI. By the way, I pay for all of these tools personally because I want to make sure that my okay. Can you see my screen again? It looks like we lost sharing. Are you with me? Can you see my top?
Yes, I lost you for a second, but I'm back.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the same prompt. And by the way, Tanya, what I'm testing is the same prompt with all of these different tools. And by the way, one of the things that you learn is, by the way, you probably shouldn't use the same prompt for everything, right? So what it is how can I build an app that relates to pizza within 200 miles of Seattle? It's kind of a terrible prompt, okay? And so I did deep research in Perplexity AI, and it gave me some pretty interesting information. And then I continued to go down. And by the way, asking a search engine for how you should write code is probably not a good idea, but it gave me some ideas to think about. So I went over here to OpenAI, and I'm using ChatGPT 4.5. Now it's a little confusing because 4.1 is later than 4.5, and these models change all the time. I get all the way to the top, and I said, how can I build an app to do this stuff within 200 miles of Seattle, Washington? And then what I did is I took the search from Perplexity and I put it into the prompt. Okay, by the way, that's kind of a random thing to put into a prompt. And then it asked me some questions. Do you want to build an app for pizza? And I said, well, I want to help home cooks find high quality pizza ingredients in real life. Maybe find amazing local non-chain pizza makers to buy dough from or learn from, maybe make pizza for charity. Okay, so we got our prompt. We're trying to build a pizza app. By the way, I've got family in Germany that tells me that Italians aren't very good at making pizza. What do you think about that, Tanja?
100%. Oh, there is no comparison. Once you come here, it just can't find that in America.
And where are you from in Germany, Tanja?
So I'm from Munich originally, and all our summers were in Italy. So we have an Italian in our village that makes excellent pizza, tuna fish pizza, by the way. It's really good.
Tuna fish pizza. And by the way, you do find this that you find a lot of different toppings that you wouldn't find in America. And you don't find quite so heavy pizzas, or not so thick. So, by the way, I'm gonna show you this application, and it comes. And I want to pay homage to a wonderful person who is one of the few Americans. In fact, I think the only American, Marco. Pretty cool dude. He owns 17 restaurants. Pizza Rock in Vegas is one of my favorite pizza restaurants in the world, believe it or not. And he's the first American who won Best Pizza in Italy. Can you believe that, Tanja? Oh my gosh. An American? What? It's like an American being the Pope. That could never happen. Oh, wait. I think that happened. We're very excited about it. So by the way, I built this actually a couple of weeks ago with Replit. And then I kind of took the same design and I said to Claude, can you make me an app, right? And by the way, I gave it very vague instructions because I wanted it just to take the same prompt and see what it do. The one thing about Claude is I think I ran out of tokens because I had to keep hitting continue. So by the way, it did write a prompt, but it meant that there's some things I have to do. I am a developer, but if you're not a developer, Tanja, some of the things that it gave you here, that looks pretty confusing, doesn't it? Doesn't that look like code that you might have to deploy? Okay, we didn't really want to do that because this isn't a code tutorial. And by the way, I would point out that this is talking about tools that assist you with what you can do. But if you're not a great developer, your code may not be great and you may not know how to debug it. This is really for demos and prototypes and to improve our thinking. So Tanja, the next tool I went to is one of my favorite new tools called Gamma. And I put that same prompt in, and I said, how can I make pizza in the greater Seattle area, find the ingredients, and again, same prompt. And I got to tell you, isn't this gorgeous?
Wow.
This is a beautiful presentation. I mean, oh my, I don't know how to do a presentation that good, Tanja, but it did some very cool.
Too?
Yeah. This was a stock photo. And it also created some generative photos. It talks about yeast varieties, which is very important. Do you want dry? Do you want instant? So active, instant, starter, It created this little very cool cold fermentation timeline. Wow. I mean, it looks like I know how to do presentations, Tanja, but I don't. I'm just using the Gamma tool, right? And most of these, by the way, cost about sort of $25, $20 a month. And as Ian would say, if you're paying for a tool and you're not, there's no training data, that's good, because otherwise you are the product. So by the way, it did a really good job of kind of talking about what I care about, right? It talked about how I might build this application. By the way, that was a first shot. I didn't do any editing for you, Tanja. So that's kind of cool, right? Yeah.
So how much?
And can you still see my screen?
Same prompt?
Yep, I use the same prompt each time for each thing. So and by the way, that is a terrible, not good practice, right? Can you see my screen again, Tanja?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And I want to show, by the way, that some of the prompting I'm doing isn't optimal. You want to take a role, you want to be specific, you want to talk about outcomes and lots of things. But I'm just kind of trying to have a Friday afternoon conversation about how I might use some tools, right? There's another tool I use a lot called Bolt. Bolt is kind of a heavier developer tool, and it's been having some problems. So I'm not going to show this. By the way, the problems aren't really with Bolt. It's just with kind of how I designed it. So we're not going to spend a lot of time. I love the tool. It's a little more developer-centric, quite frankly. So then I'll take you to Lovable. I think Lovable did the best job. By the way, each of these are tools that do help you with some design and prototyping. And remember that a lot of times it takes people days, weeks, and months to get to the first prototype. Think of this as like FigJam, wireframe, that kind of thing. So now I happen to live about 120 miles from Seattle, and it did a very good job of actually getting the mission right and the code right. First of all, I think it's a pretty beautiful app. Okay, this is just a React framework, just a simple app. But it also did a really good job of curating some recipes. That was very nice. And it also showed me some local suppliers. And by the way, one of the best suppliers in the area is either Fairhaven, which is up near the university, Western Washington University, but Bluebird Grains is amazing. And I think actually the Gates Foundation at one point went up and visited with them because they do such extraordinary work. So that was really cool. I think it got it a really, what do you think? Do you think this is kind of this pretty usable app for something that just came from one prompt, right? So
Yeah. Well, and I'm surprised
yeah.
too, because your prompt was very vague. your
Super.
objective was not super clear.
It's hard to believe that my family is from Germany and I was so non-specific. Oh my goodness, Lord. Now I took the same prompt and I put it in beautiful.ai, which until Gamma came along was my favorite prompting tool for presentation. I think it's not nearly as good as Gamma, right? It's okay, but I don't think it got the same. If we go back to Gamma and we take a look, I think this is like head and shoulders better. I mean, this feels like something I'd be willing to show people and kind of go, what do you think of what a great genius designer I am, right?
Well, and also what stands out to me is in this one, that when you first put it up, I saw the Space Needle in the background, which I think is a nice touch, that it took that little piece of information from your prompt and put it in the initial slide, so you know it's by Seattle. That is the Space Needle, right?
Yeah, it's a Space Needle. It's a Seattle pizza. By the way, that's one of the most famous shots in all of Washington State. And by the way, that is a lovely bunch of dough. So yeah, I think that was kind of a win there. I asked the same prompt. I did the same prompt with Copilot, and again, we seem to be losing our sharing capabilities. But welcome to Ain't a Professional Video, and it's a Friday. So can you see my desktop again here?
Yes, I can. Yeah, now I can.
Okay. So I'm going to Copilot, and I asked the same thing of Copilot. Now, there are a lot of versions of Copilot, and this is the specific prompt that I gave, just as a reminder. Okay. I didn't really like the way it handled this, but remember, there are tons of versions of Copilot. Microsoft likes Copilot so much they have, I think, 31 versions. So I said, so it did give me, by the way, a step-by-step to build it. It gave me some great references. I said, can you write this app for me? Because again, I'm trying to be lazy here, and I'm also trying to ask each of the tools to do the same thing. And it says, well, I can't really write the app for you, but I can give you the scripts, and I can give you the insight and all of this stuff. And again, it even gave me a downloadable file for the entire project, right? And how I can install it and all of that stuff. And I said, well, how do I download it to deploy to GitHub? Because it seems kind of hard, Sparky. Now, it's not really hard, but I'm just trying to be fair because I'm asking all the coding tools to do the same thing. And, you know, it did a pretty good job. I wasn't overwhelmed by it, but I thought it was pretty good. And then I asked Gemini Advanced the same prompt, and Gemini Advanced, in the format that I was using it, really was using it for research. So it gave me a really good research study. Okay. And I'm going to show you what I used for that research study. Okay, in just a moment. So if you haven't seen it, have you played with this? This is an experiment from Google. Okay, and what I'm going to say is, I'm going to go ahead and refresh this because this was ephemeral. So I'm going to say, what are, and what I said, I'm going to let's actually go to the chat and kind of redo that. So I'm going to say, in sources here, whoops, what are the key impact for pizza dough ingredients? So what I had done is a search to say, in the whole world, tell me the most important things for making really good home pizza with home ingredients and techniques. I don't want to have an expensive pizza oven, and what makes a difference. And so I first imported the top sort of 10 documents from English, and then I said, could you do the same thing in Italian? Okay, we're not. When I to include sound. So we're going to do it again here. And let's see if you can see can you hear this audio, Tanja?
All right, Pizza Pilgrims, welcome back to the deep
Yeah.
dive. You've sent us on quite a delicious mission, haven't you?
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to join in the conversation.
Yeah, decoding the secrets of really amazing. Oh, our listeners got something to share. Let's hear it.
Yeah, you guys, I don't really understand why I have to buy expensive flour. Like, can't I just go down to Kroger and get some baking flour? What is this whole 00 flour? Is it like secret agent flour? I'm confused.
That's a fantastic question. It totally makes sense to wonder about all these different flours.
Yeah, secret agent flour. I love that. It might seem a bit extra, but it really does make a difference in the final pizza.
Think of it like this. All those flours at Kroger, like your regular baking flour or all-purpose, they're great for lots of things.
Cakes, cookies, you name it.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
I hate to break in, but you guys are talking really slow, and I'm in a hurry. I got to make some pizza. So, like, what's the most important thing I need to do right with my ingredients to make really good Italian pizza at home without busting the budget? Come on, you guys, help me.
Okay, we hear you. You're on a pizza mission.
Right to the heart of the matter. For really good Italian pizza at home, the quality of your tomatoes for the sauce is key.
Absolutely. Several of our sources emphasize using the best tomatoes you can find.
Christina's Cucina specifically says, and I quote, "This is the most important ingredient. Do not use inferior quality tomatoes."
They even recommend
By the way, I took that locus or nexus of information, put it into the Google Notebook project, asked some questions of it, and then it automatically created these two avatars that are talking to me, which, by the way, is a really fun conversation. Although you should probably let people know, because everyone thought I was crazy at Starbucks today when I was doing this. So maybe not wrong. And then the final piece of the puzzle is, and I don't want to go too deep into this, Tanya, because we're going to be talking about this probably next week with Ian and some other folks. But I said something called Bevan. I said, take my Replit repo. So that pizza, remember that pizza app that I showed you in Replit, right?
Yep.
I said, just take this app from Replit, create an agent, a team of agents to do end-to-end CI/CD AI ops, so I can have each worker role have the right level of privilege to get work done without spawning a global virus meltdown. Grin. And then I put the URL for the Pizza Palace app that I built with Replit. It asked me some questions. I came up with a plan. I said, please use GCP. You can pick the stack. I like a stack of pancakes, but I don't know what you want to use. You can pick the CI/CD tools. Maybe you can use the Google stuff by default. I don't really care about security because it's a demo. And then I said, it told me what to do. It asked me some questions. I made some answers. By the way, all the best sort of coding tools are now prompting for better questions, which you'll notice. And then I said, can you create a plan for the BobRap AI API? Because I want to manage the interactions between my agents in Replit, Bolt, Lovable, V0, Gemini, Copilot Studio, Output to Gamma, NVIDIA.ai, CodeRabbit.ai. And again, I want an API here, Tanya, that as we start adding tools, we can just call them and they can send the information or take the information from other places. Says, are you sure you don't want any security? I'm like, no, security. Oh, who would ever want to do that? And then I did say, could you do all of the documentation in dynamic pentameter, which was a little gratuitous, but there's nothing like putting all the documentation in dynamic pentameter, because I think that's hilarious. And it says, yes, I'll do it. I will make all of the agents, and I'll do all the docs with poetic flair. Okay. I thank Sparky Lou for doing it. And then it built me a deployment with 5 agents. And by the way, I said, what could possibly go wrong with this? Running amok. And by the way, it deployed my agents in an agent architecture here. Now, I probably may have to reboot this because it's been a few minutes. We've had a few sound issues. But if you haven't started playing with agents, agentic architectures are wildly overrated by some people. If you look on the internet, there are probably people telling you how to make $1,000 an hour with agents. Agents are pretty amazing, but they're really bits of code that have some bit of autonomy and some authorization and other stuff. And it's really worth a deeper conversation. But by the way, Devin is sleepy now. I got to wake up Devin. And then I think that will make my front end come alive. So what do you think about that? I mean, we're just trying to build a pizza app better than our students. Do you think we were pretty productive in this sort of 20 minutes of conversation? What do you think, Tanja?
I mean, I am pretty amazed, and I'm not a developer, right? And you know that about me. But how long did it take you to do all of that? I mean, I know you demoed it, but you gave some prompts before, right? So
the prompt. So for me, the prompting, especially if I'm writing in architecture, I go back to Red Books and deck notes and stuff. I've been doing this tech stuff since I was for a long time. So I think about what a well-formed project looks like. So I sort of say it took me 40 years plus 30 minutes, right? So I usually research the prompt, and then I make sure that sort of end to end I'm building an application architecture. So what are we trying to do? How are we trying to do it? Are we trying to save money, make money? Are we trying to keep things secure and all that stuff? So that is sort of a mega prompt that probably usually takes me sort of 15 or 20 minutes to write. I also, by the way, write very specific prompts. I've shown you a general example here, but this entire first group of drafts were done in parallel in less than 34 minutes. Okay. And I would say that the Gamma, I think the Gamma presentation, and I think particularly the lovable view, I particularly love the local suppliers view. I think that was like a home run. And for me, this is ideation, right, Tanja? Because you and I are talking about how do we build a better app, or how do we do this project for you for project management? Well, in the time we've been on just this video with 3 or 4 Teams crashes, we've already learned some stuff from each other. So what are some things you take away with this, Tanja, about how you can maybe demo some stuff without being a developer? You don't have to be a developer here.
Well,
So
I think in general, through this whole AI journey, and every time I see those tools, I think stepping back and being able to just dive into AI and start using it and seeing what it comes up with, versus having the hours that I usually take to, research and Google it and click on this homepage and the next one. I mean, you had a pitch deck, right? With Gamma, you had your PowerPoint, you had the app, you had the code, you had it all in different tools that just ran in parallel. I think that would be my biggest takeaway from this.
that's good. And the other thing is, often we say to people, these are tools. So just like we don't blame the slide rule or the calculator or the hammer and nails for what you produce, you're still the master of your craft. So Tanja, you're amazing at what you do, but you're still responsible for being amazing. The tools just help you supercharge, right? And remember, the feature is the bug. So generative AI is going to generate something new each time by design. By the way, you can ratchet that down. Some people call it hallucination, but that is, by the way, one of the creative things here. I can give the same prompt to 10 different tools, and it'll come back with different understandings based on its underlying model and mathematics and retraining and human feedback. But wasn't this fun? Like, wasn't it fun to create together? And I mean, this took less time than most corporate meetings do, right? Holy shnikes. So,
and I want pizza now. I might actually make it.
Well, hey, we're going to jump in next week on looking at maybe some project or program management tools. By the way, if you haven't done it, it's fun to create logos. I'm working with someone, she's presenting to her kindergarten class. I'm presenting to my 3rd and 4th graders at robotics, and I'm going to make them a team logo later this week. So just remember, this is, in our lifetimes, this is probably the most amazing technology that's occurred. We have to understand it. There's some big implications, both positive and negative, but it is joyful to create and to make humanity a better place. And Tanja, thanks. I really like spending time with you today. Let's go try to make the world more amazing with the tools that we know how to use. So thank you so much. Dankeschön.
Goodbye.
Take care.